The general idea of this blog is to explain how and why different art styles emerged and evolved in Europe. Therefore, I try to refrain from telling political or military history in a common way, but at the same time to consider some important historical topics through the lens of art development. And in one of the previous videos, I've mentioned the significance of direct influence of a country, a society, or an institution like the church on the development of art in any region. The influence achieved by conquest, takeover, incorporation of territories, unification, etc. And in this regard, I'd like to explain and to suggest some examples. By the 10th century, Normans settled on the French northern coast, and after 911, the siege of Chartres, Normans were granted lands, which were later called Normandy, and these territories expanded later. They were granted these lands in exchange for the protection of French royal domain and from other Vikings groups, and for the loyalty to the French crown. The Normans leaders' role was baptized, and in general, Normans assimilated rather rapidly and were Francanized. And under the influence of French Romanesque architecture, Normans developed the regional variation of the Romanesque style with the distinctive features. And one of the prominent examples of Norman architecture there was the Abbey of Saint-Étienne. And Normans exported this derivation of the Romanesque style to England, especially after the conquest of England in 1066. Even before the conquest, Norman architects were invited to England, but after the conquest, the influence of Norman architecture culture, French language which they brought with them, was tremendous on English society and was spread throughout the British Isles. And one of the most famous examples of Norman architecture in England are Durham Cathedral, for example, and, for example, let's say, the White Tower of London. And to southern Italy, which was previously controlled by Byzantines and Arabs, but since the 11th century gradually conquered by Normans, and in 1130 Roger II was crowned as King of Sicily, and as a result, elements from Norman, Romanesque, and also from Byzantine and Arab, especially decorative elements, from these styles were blended and formed another Romanesque style, so-called Norman, Byzantine, Arab style. And to a lesser extent, Normans brought that style even to one of the Crusader states, the Principality of Antioch. Check the sources on the website, and in the next video I'll tell you also about one of the most important artworks and examples of the Norman art.